So, Laura, welcome to the first podcast.
Thank you. Cool.
So, I thought we would just get into it. If you could explain, just for the people out there, sort of how you came to be at Massey, what sort of brought you over here, what your degree is in, what your study fields and things like that are. If we could go through anything like that, I'm sure some people out there, hopefully that are watching, will enjoy it. Sweet.
Well, it's a bit of a roundabout story, to be honest. You can obviously tell I'm not from New Zealand.
So where is the accent from originally?
From the UK, from England.
Which part?
Gloucestershire.
Gloucestershire. So where's Gloucestershire?
That's sort of like southwest to Midlands, quite close to Wales. Wales and Bristol are probably the nearest places to where I'm from that people might know of.
Right. Okay. And is that? So is Cornwall down?
Cornwall's further south, but same sort of side of the country, on the west side.
And Devon, is Devon sort of?
Devon's further south as well.
Okay, so I'm sort of on the right track.
Okay,
cool. Geography of Britain is not good. I just know that, Ireland, like Northern Ireland is here in Ireland, so Ireland, and all that. And then Wales is off to the left.
West.
It's not too bad.
Better than my geography of New Zealand was before I came here.
Which is just two islands. Cool.
So I did my undergrad degree in England, the University of Reading, which is just outside of London. My undergrad was actually in animal science.
Right.
So I was working with a professor, Ian Gibbons, who's the professor of food chain nutrition. So we were looking at the interaction between animal and food production and human health, and that was sort of my speciality for my undergrad. So my thesis for that was looking around how subclinical iodine deficiency, particularly in young women, affects the development of IQ of their children when they get pregnant. So subclinical iodine deficiency is something that's not been on the radar for a long time. When you think of iodine deficiency, you think of like less developed countries, people with like a big goiter. That's like a real clinical iodine deficiency. But on a subclinical level, when it's just a mild deficiency, there's no like real outright symptoms, so people wouldn't necessarily know that they have it. But in that state, if a woman becomes pregnant, iodine is very much required for the thyroid hormones and the development of the baby. So there's quite significant consequences on how that baby develops if the mother's just a little bit deficient in iodine.
So is that related, so thyroid, is that because of this?
And that's why the goiter comes. Because there's issues with the thyroid gland.
So just about that, so what was it again? What was your undergrad?
It was animal science, the degree, with a speciality in food chain nutrition. So we were looking at how milk produced in different kind of conditions, so organic versus conventional, how the iodine levels are different, and then how that affects people.
So just for a basic sort of catch up, iodine, what is that sort of in the body? What do we know about that basics of iodine?
Iodine is one of your micronutrients. So you've got your macros, which we often hear about, particularly in the gym environment.
So that's your alcohol, your fats, protein, and carbs. So this is a micronutrient.
So micronutrients are generally like your vitamins and minerals. So iodine will come under your minerals. And iodine's an interesting one because in a lot of foods it will come from the soil. So that's particularly relevant for New Zealand because the soils here are actually quite depleted in some nutrients.
Is it? What's that sort of? What's brought that on?
Generally, like a long history of farming will do that. So crops take the nutrients from the soil. And if you continue to farm over many, many generations, it becomes depleted.
Sure.
And so, I mean, that's why we use fertilizers to provide more nitrogen, but then some of the micronutrients like iodine and selenium is another one that gets quite depleted.
Right.
Our fruit and vegetables and things grown on the soil then don't have as much of those micronutrients as we really need because it's not in the soil.
Okay.
Yeah. So for iodine, in that sense, mostly fish and meat. Fish and milk are some of the main sources of iodine.
Right.
And a lot of people don't eat that much fish. So a lot of people get most of their iodine through milk. In this country, you have quite a lot of iodized salt.
Yes.
Right,
yep,
which will cover that. Yeah. But we don't have much of that in the UK. So subclinical iodine deficiency is quite common there.
Right.
And the main thing that we were actually trying to address is the fact that when women become pregnant or are looking at having children, they'll often switch from conventional products to organic because they want to be more healthy.
Yeah.
But one of the problems that we were finding is that the organic milk was actually lower in iodine than the conventional milk. So although women were switching for health conscious reasons, they were actually then missing out on some of the iodine that they really needed for the development of their baby.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you were doing this, and this was with your undergrad?
Yeah.
You were doing this?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And so you went on from there. What were the sort of main findings or?
Yeah. The main findings were that really, not that people shouldn't be switching to organic, because there's lots of good reasons to consume organic produce,
Yep.
but if you are switching to organic, particularly milk,
Yeah.
be aware that if you're concerned about an iodine deficiency or you're a woman thinking of getting pregnant, you would need to drink more milk or
Right.
eat fish to make sure that you're getting the iodine that you need. So they were the main findings.
Yeah.
And just trying to increase a bit of awareness about
Around
that.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So you went from
Yeah.
animal science.
Yeah.
So were you interested in becoming a vet?
Yeah.
Initially, or?
I grew up on a dairy farm,
Yeah.
so I've always been involved with animals and food production,
Yeah.
milk production. So I was certainly interested in the veterinary side when I started.
Yeah.
It was actually through my undergrad where I became a lot more involved in nutrition through this project that I then
You
started
wanted
to shift
Yep.
more heavily into the nutrition side. Yeah.
So did you do honours or you went to a master's program?
Yeah, it was honours degree.
Yeah, that's always good at because you can
Yeah.
shave like 1 year off
Yeah.
from doing your PhD.
Yeah.
Because I was sort of getting, not stuck, but I went through masters,
Yeah.
and so I ended up doing like an extra year this year
Yeah.
before I could possibly go on to complete a PhD.
Yeah.
Cool. So your honours, you had so what you just talked about, that was the research that you did
Yes.
in your honours?
Yeah.
And those were the main findings?
Yeah.
Cool. So when did you finish up with your undergrad, with your
That
honours?
was 2014.
2014?
Yeah. And then at that point I looked at doing a PhD and we wanted to
still in England?
continue.
Or just-
With the same professor actually, we looked at continuing that same research area with the milk and nutrition.
Yeah.
But we didn't get funding for that at the time. And I decided to then take a job in industry.
Yeah.
So I then went to work as in the beginning as an assistant scientist for DuPont,
Right.
who were a large kind of American-based but multinational company in all sorts of fields, but one of their fields is nutrition.
Okay. I think I've heard of it.
Yeah. They do a lot of things like some of their most famous things are like Teflon and Kevlar.
Right.
So they've like got a strong chemistry background as a company,
Right.
but have been moving more into like biotechnology things.
Okay.
So I actually went into their animal nutrition group.
Yes.
And I was involved in the research and development of new probiotics.
Right. Yep.
And also enzymes. So it's quite big in animal nutrition to supplement with dietary enzymes to help digestion.
Okay.
And one thing I've noticed in recent years is that dietary enzymes are actually popping up now in a lot of gym-based products, like whey shakes and things like that have often got either protease, which is a protein digesting enzyme, and things like that. So I was involved in the early stage development of those enzymes and probiotics, and then their testing for efficacy.
Interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
So, so you went from, so you didn't quite get funding over there, and then you were in industry.
Yeah.
What did you find in industry? What got you from industry to wanting to pursue your PhD further?
Yeah. There's a big difference between industry and academia. Industry, there's a lot of really good things about industry, especially working for a company like DuPont. They've got a good amount of funding.
Yeah.
So you can do really cool science because you've got money to do it. And that's really cool. And they do fund a lot of kind of blue sky projects, just trying to find out new information and do cool things. It's not all just about the money, but a big part of it is about the money.
Right.
So there's pressure for projects to fit into specific business timelines and specific markets. And towards the sort of like later stage, you become very involved in marketing, global launches of products and interacting with customers. And I learned a lot doing that.
Right.
But during this time when I was learning all this stuff about nutrition, I was mainly working with pigs who physiologically, in terms of nutrition, are a really good model for humans.
Are they?
And we're actually trying to use them more, than, because we used to use mostly mice.
Yes.
But I mean, you can tell even by looking at a mouse and a human that we have more similarities with a pig. So a lot of what I was doing was very applicable to humans. So I started reading more and more about the things that I was doing at work, probiotics and gut health and things in humans, and how there was this very fine crossover between the two. And I really wanted to dive deep into the human side more and really learn a lot more about that. And I've been at DuPont for about 4 years at this point. So I'd advanced from an assistant scientist to a research scientist, and I was managing a few projects. And I was kind of ready to move on to the next thing, and that was human nutrition for me.
Awesome. So the opportunity at Massey sort of came up. Did you hear about it, or did you sort of go looking for it?
So I'm actually funded by both Ag Research and also the Riddett Institute, which is a New Zealand Centre of Research Excellence based at Massey University. So they specialise in food and nutrition research. So they kind of sit within Massey, but are their own sort of part separate entity as well. And the original director of the Riddett Institute was a guy called Professor Paul Mullen. And he's a Kiwi guy who set up the Riddett here. And he actually used to come to DuPont when I worked there. He would fly over to the UK. He's an expert in protein nutrition. So he would come and do all these talks about amino acids and how to like liberate more protein from feed, improve protein digestibility, and all the effects of protein in the animal or human. He does both. And his research was really cool, and so I followed him at a few conferences around the world, and ended up, being interested in the Riddett Institute and what they were doing here. And at that time, when I was thinking of leaving, the Riddett Institute had just got some funding to take on a number think nearly 10 or so PhD students.
Oh yeah.
So they already had scholarships for students to come and do a PhD with them.
Yes.
And back in the UK, New Zealand is a pretty popular place to come.
Destination, just to come and move over. Yeah, I've always wondered why that is. Yeah.
I think partly there's a strong pull in the agricultural industry.
Right.
If you're in England and you've had anything ever to do with farming, you know about New Zealand.
New Zealand. Yeah. It's very big on agriculture.
Yeah.
And Massey, especially Massey University, Manawatu campus. It's huge on agriculture here. Especially with the vet school being here as well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. And you know, as a young, in your early 20s, I mean, to go to the opposite side of the world, like as far as you can get from home, that's quite attractive.
I know, it's crazy, because on the geography on the map, you know, like England's up here, and it's diagonal.
Exactly.
I think I went from when I was younger. I think I travelled from Auckland, or was it Brisbane, up to Thailand, and then straight across.
Yeah.
And that took so long. And it wasn't a very long stop in Thailand or anything like that. So that took ages. Just crossing right across.
Yeah.
Obviously we went right through like the Middle East and straight over.
Yeah.
It took forever.
And you were in Scotland for a bit as well, weren't you?
Yeah, I was living there. Yeah. The flight itself was just crazy.
Flights.
So, like
flights. 3.
Yeah, exactly.
3 long haul flights.
Hopefully one day we can be doing it in just one. Possibly if they bring back the what was it? The plane that got
from Aussie to London.
Oh no, the Concorde, sorry.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if they could actually do that.
I don't know. There was a flight they were doing, like a 30-hour flight from Aussie to London.
A 30-hour flight?
Just one flight.
From Aussie to London?
Yeah, I think it was,
Anyway. So, so it was a huge incentive to obviously come to the other side of the world and to get a PhD. And especially at the place where you were very interested in. So that's an awesome opportunity. Cool. So how far through are you into your PhD? How long does it take to?
I'm about 2.5 years in now. So a typical PhD in New Zealand is like 3.5 to 4 years. Unfortunately, I got caught in COVID, like everybody, in the middle of a clinical trial. So I'm about 6 or 7 months out from where I would have been.
Right.
So it probably pushed me through to 4 or just over 4. But PhDs are kind of weird because it depends where in the world you do it. If you go to the US and do a PhD, it will be like 5-6 years minimum. But I've seen people here finish in 3. So there's a real discrepancy between where in the world you do your PhD and how long it takes.
Wow. Crazy. I've heard of a guy that I heard of a guy that did it in 2.5 years.
Oh wow!
Wow! Full time, and my supervisor was telling me he did his, and so he was working full time, and he was doing his PhD. Well, it wasn't part time because he did it in 3.5 years while he was working full time. Like that's all he was. That's all he was doing. It's just completely committed to both things.
Oh my god!
And when I heard that, I was like, oh. That's some dedication right there. And brilliant guy.
Wow.
But that's Dr. Matt Barnes.
Oh yeah.
He's awesome. He's my supervisor.
But so where are you at now? Sort of with studies, sort of what's happening with COVID?
Yeah. So it kind of happened at a bit of an unfortunate time for us at the Riddett Institute because we've just moved from our old facilities to a brand new multi-million-dollar lab building called Teahu, which is just
that's the new one.
With the pole. It's done now with the poles outside.
I was actually wondering, is that
Is that the design or is that purely
It's
structural?
design.
Right, yeah.
It's
Because I was
design,
like, it doesn't look like it's structural, it's all like, you know,
in
it's all like
an
in little bunches.
country, you wouldn't want to stick
Yeah,
it
no.
building up on
No.
sticks like that.
Yeah, it's like, no, that must be design, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, architecture, that's a whole nother.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's amazing though, eh? Like,
Yeah.
some of the buildings that they come up with.
Yeah.
Some of the creativity and design
Yeah.
concepts they come up with.
Yeah.
Sweet. So yeah, so COVID sort of used
Yeah.
things up a little bit.
So that building was supposed to open in April, but got pushed back more to like June, July time.
Yeah.
And then it was basically like empty labs in there. So getting all of our equipment over, set up and everything took another couple of months. So I just started my work that I'm doing at the moment back like 3 weeks ago.
Right.
From a break from February, we had to shut down to start moving everything. Like we've got pieces of equipment that are like worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, so there's a lot of companies involved in moving that and setting it up and stuff. So
absolutely. Wow. So
Yeah.
it must feel really good to finally get
Oh,
going
yeah.
again.
yeah,
Yep. Oh, awesome.
yeah,
So you were telling me the other day in the gym
yeah.
that you just got your nutrition certification. Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah. So in New Zealand, one of the best ways that nutritionists are kind of monitored and also kind of quality checked is through the Nutrition Society of New Zealand.
Good, and it's really important that
Yeah,
if you're going to find a nutritionist,
Yeah.
they should look for that.
definitely, yeah.
Cool.
So at the moment, unfortunately, the name nutritionist is not protected at all.
So anyone could just say,
You
"I'm a
could call
nutritionist."
yourself a nutritionist.
Right.
Bob out there could call himself a nutritionist. Anyone can say that.
Yeah.
The title that is currently protected at the moment is registered nutritionist.
Registered nutritionist.
Yeah.
So yeah, they have to be registered, and then
Yeah.
you know that
Yeah.
obviously they've been accredited.
Yeah.
They've got some credentials. They've been to
Yeah.
university.
Yeah.
And because obviously you have to do the right papers
Exactly.
to become registered.
Yeah.
And that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Not just some bloke off YouTube
Yeah,
just
yeah,
saying he's a nutritionist
yeah.
or whatever. Always done a few papers
Yeah.
in nutrition.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done a couple of papers in nutrition, and I don't know anything really.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh,
just the
you know a
basics.
lot more than general people, but yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the difference really comes in where you get people who know about food. And I would say this is what I'm like with the gym, right? I know what works for me and my body. And the danger is when you then start telling everybody else that they should do what works for you. Because that's a very, just like exercise, just like the gym, just like everything is really personal.
Yeah.
So the difference between someone becoming a registered nutritionist is that they have both the education and also experience. You have to do experience with another registered dietitian or nutritionist
Okay.
to learn actually how to coach people
Yeah.
for their individuality.
Yeah.
So I might have my perfect diet that works amazingly for me and I could shout about how great it is, but I would never recommend it to you because you're not me.
Yes. So
So-
it has to be quite individualized. Like
Absolutely, yeah.
So there's no, you know
Yeah.
how like a lot of YouTube personality gym profiles and
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. They're like, okay, yeah, we'll do like a meal plan and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So that's going to be like a general, sort of generic sort of meal plan.
Yeah.
Just, is it pretty much based off just the basics of sort of energy balance and all that sort of stuff? Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you really want to know for yourself,
Yeah.
you know, a registered nutritionist will be
Yeah.
able to help you create an individualized
Yeah,
sort of plan.
Yeah.
So there you really need to
Yeah. I'm full-time doing my PhD, which is around the gut microbiome, human gut microbiome.
Yeah.
And then I'm doing part-time working as a registered nutritionist
Yes.
for Studio Rubik's,
Yeah.
who are a health and wellness centre in town here in Palmerston North.
Right. Yep.
Yeah,
I've heard good things.
Yeah, so the nutrition part is run by Kate Morland. So she's a registered dietitian and registered nutritionist with more than 15 years experience. And she's awesome. She's done loads of different training in sports nutrition, eating disorders, and she's pretty much trained me from scratch other than what I've picked up in my PhD. So
awesome. So if anyone wants to contact you, nutrition for any nutrition stuff, cool. How can they contact you?
Best way is laura@studiorubix.co.nz.
Awesome. Sweet. All right. Well, we'll leave it there for today.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll see you again soon.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Thanks, Adam.
Cool. See ya.